Reynold, I want to hear your take on the value of a handful of the capabilities that Databricks offers. Let's start with Lakeflow.
The vision of Lakeflow is really to simplify data engineering. If you think about data, everything starts with data engineering. And there's typically this persona data engineer that tries to get all of the data into sort of a central repository, which in our case would be the lakehouse. And if you use proprietary data warehouse, it could be the data warehouse. And then they need to transform this data through maybe what we call medallion architecture, right? From bronze to silver to gold. And this is an extremely complicated, super costly process. Lakeflow aims to make that simple for data engineers. It has Lakeflow Connect that's to help you get data in from a variety of different systems. There's workflows, and there's also a Spark declarative pipeline to help you with the transformation. And then we're also working on some stuff that some of it we have actually shown at Data and AI Summit, the most recent one, a few months ago. But we're also working on more to make data engineering not just simpler for data engineers, but also feasible for non-data engineers.
I'm very excited for Lakeflow Designer.
Yeah, exactly. So they don't have to be blocked on having.
As someone that before struggled with Delta Life tables, for me, now I'm liking where declarative pipelines is today.
Yeah.
I'm excited for Lakeflow Designer even more.
So then people don't have to block always on you.
Yeah, since we already mentioned a lake something, what about Lakebase?
Yeah, Lakebase is our take on OLTP databases, which is the other side of the giant data estate that we haven't touched in the past. We want to make databases far more easier to use and make them much easier to manage, and also make them great for maybe this new persona that we call agents, in addition to humans, and want to actually make databases integrate much better with the lakehouse. Because when we talk to a lot of customers, they talk about, hey, we have our OLTP database, but they're in a different silo from our data infrastructure for analytics. But we always end up, like, OLTP database is actually one of the most important, maybe the most important data sources for the data lake. How do we actually combine them? We think we have everything it takes to actually solve this problem for everybody. That's why we're excited about Lakebase.
AIBI dashboards.
Yeah. Ultimately, I think we have all this technical persona, data engineering teams, data science teams, but if you want to democratize data, I want to actually enable every individual, whether they consider themselves an analyst or not, to be able to get insights out of data. And one of the most important tool there, or toolkit every enterprise has, is their BI tool. AIBI is our take on BI. It's actually free because we actually think we can monetize enough just based on a level below that we don't have to worry about charging you with user-based pricing or sort of some other seat-based pricing. It's completely free, and it gives you not just what traditional dashboards can do. I think it's as an independent dashboard product. I mean, you talked about it. It's gone from like pretty crappy in the past to actually decent. You keep getting better, but we think what's really interesting about it is the AI part of it, right? BI dashboard is largely a static thing, and they make a lot of sense. It's very important. It will never go away. But I think with AI, we can now actually ask questions that are more general, whether it's based on a dashboard or just based on a bunch of semantics that are defined about your data. We think that's how we're going to disrupt BI tools in the past.
No, honestly, I am personally very happy with how much dashboards has matured, and I've shared this publicly because I asked him before. I once had asked Lee, like, hey, you have dashboards there. Like, is there even any intention from Databricks to make dashboards good? This was like almost 2 years ago, and his response was basically like, hey, if we're gonna offer it, we want it to be very good. So
Yeah,
I personally, I'm very happy with how much the product has improved.
To us, it's a long-term game. So you shouldn't look at sort of what's on the truck today, but actually look at the velocity or the slope of it
Yeah. Yeah.
in the future.
Shout out to Miranda and Chao and Ken who took so much of my feedback, and they probably got tired of my feedback.
No,
But
no, they love your feedback. Keep on
yeah.
coming.
Delta sharing.
I think data sharing is probably first sort of open data sharing protocol that work at scale. I'm sure there are a lot of open source projects here and there, but really interesting about the data sharing is that in the past, like we've seen sort of among our customer base and just broader community in general, people want to be able to share data, either internal within the company or external with their data providers and vendors and consumers. And it creates this very important network. But every sharing protocol in the past was some sort of proprietary protocol, which means now you have to implement specifically for a sharing protocol and a vendor. And data sharing is just when we decided to do it, was like, hey, so we are very proud of our open source roots and the way we build open standards. Why can't a data sharing protocol be open? So we just built one. And it's taking off like crazy. Obviously it benefits more than us because it's an open protocol. Like there are a lot of data shares that happen between different constituents that have nothing to do with Databricks, right? We think that's okay because we're creating more of an ecosystem here that we're an important part of it. But then hopefully in the future, if you have a data sharing use case, you just implement the open protocol of data sharing once, and you're done. You don't have to worry about, hey, do I implement this for this vendor and that for the other vendor, and then keep doing it.
I personally I've seen the value of it, especially within when I've worked with vendors of data. I think it really opens up. It makes things very frictionless, which I think is awesome. Last but not least, the darling of Databricks, Unity Catalog.
Yeah, it's incredible. Honestly, when we first started doing Unity Catalog a few years ago, I didn't expect it to be this much of a hit. But you could think of Unity Catalog as from two angles. One is bottom up. It gives you a single pane of glass for all of your resources. They're not just about data, but also other things you care about alongside data, like machine learning models, notebooks, your Lakebase databases. But also in the data side, it actually federates and can index not just Databricks catalog, can index Snowflake catalog, can index a Postgres instance, can index everything. So it kind of provides a single pane of glass for everything. Everything in data and everything that's associated important in AI. And then on top of that, it gives you this governance capabilities to cover all of them. So you give them RBAC, ABAC, standard row-based access control, column-based access control, and make sure they're enforced properly, regardless what the query engine would be. And honestly, probably like more than half of Databricks engineering resources in the past few years went into making sure UC actually works at scale and making sure we can enforce properly that governance there, which is a very complicated problem because Spark initially was not designed for
Metascore days. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a massive amount of work that's gone to Spark itself. Which is, I think, now one of the main competitive advantage we have, because if you look at a lot of other platforms, they actually, first of all, they don't have a catalog to begin with in many cases. At least a catalog can index this many things. And then often when they have a catalog, they can't actually enforce governance because they haven't done that heavy lift in engineering to actually make sure the governance there can be properly enforced, especially when there are user defined code in it. But yeah, it's basically, it solves the enterprise governance problem, which is extremely valuable for enterprises.